Welcome to the Tuning In podcast, where we talk alignment, intuition, and our internal guidance system. We cover woo-woo topics in an approachable and practical way. I'm your host, Dana Evans of alignful.com. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dana Evans, and I am joined by the wonderful, the lovely Kimi Morton, our co-host. Woohoo! Woohoo! And this is the third episode of our Soulular Connection Mindful Rest series. Seems to be what we're talking about.
Mindful Rest series. I love the sound of that.
Yeah, I do too. And it's so funny because Kimi and I had kind of planned what we wanted to talk about today. And then we both, per usual, are like kind of showing up with whatever else is floating around in our atmospheres. And so we're going to like, surprise, go with the flow.
That's how we do it.
That's how we do it. And here's what's interesting. So let me set the scene. So Kimi just finished a launch of her program, which you guys heard about in our episode. And here's the sense I got, not just for your launch, Kimi, but that this week has been like really intense energy. I don't know if I think I do know that you felt this a little bit. I definitely felt this like hurry energy. And I was feeling like I needed to like hurry. And I had so much going on and so much to do. And it was like, just like, go. Did you experience that?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think this was just a really intense week in our world. So there was a lot going on energetically, politically. It's just like a lot happening. And so there were a lot of feelings around. There was a lot of noise and interesting, energetics, I think, happening. And then, of course, being in a launch during that week as well, of course, that brings up a whole another type of pressure that can show itself. Although I will say I'm very proud and feel happy and excited to share more about how light this launch felt compared to other launches that I've had. So yay for that. And kind of some of the things that I did to practice, I guess, energetic hygiene in a really intense week. But I'm definitely feeling it today, which we can get into. I was just telling you before we hopped on that I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm having an exhale moment, and that today, as we talk, it's going to really help to almost like process, like emotionally process everything that this last week was. So yes, my short answer is yes.
Yes. Well, and it's, I love it when like something big happens in the week, and then what we'll tend to do is like we get through it and then we like crash. And sometimes actually having that space to process and review it before you crash can be really grounding and healing. And then you can actually rest with a more complete rest because you don't still have all the things kind of running around in your mind.
That is so true. I definitely experienced that. Last night, I went to bed. So last night, my cart closed on my program at midnight. I went to bed before midnight because I'm not staying up till midnight. And I went to bed at honestly 8 o'clock, I think, and did not set an alarm. But I woke up at 1 in the morning. I think it's because I didn't do that processing, that I'm in the middle of the night with these thoughts of what about this? And I got to do this. And I think it is so important, as you just said, to take that time to at least do a little bit of a debrief, a little bit of processing, so that then you can fully unplug and let your nervous system totally relax, which I'm looking forward to. And I am so grateful that I was able to fall back asleep. There's nothing worse than waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to get back to sleep. But after, I would say probably 15 minutes. And here's my trick for when I get woken up in the middle of the night with the racing mind. I tap. I do EFT in bed, and I'll usually just do like one round, and it'll be enough to remind my body that it's safe to relax, and I'll fall back asleep. So it's probably the best and most useful way that I apply EFT in my life. And it's because I need it so desperately in that moment. But that shows to me that it totally works as a way to, just like reset your nervous system, calm your nervous system, get you out of fight or flight. Because clearly there was no emergency at 1:00. Like that was all my crazy brain being like, did you do all your launch items? It's like, that is not anything I need to worry about at 1 a.m.
No, or anything you're going to do anything about.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. So just a little side note to you guys, Kimi came into my membership and did a tapping workshop. And man, it was so powerful just to learn that emotional freedom technique and calming the nervous system. Like that's such a good point, because what happens is if we aren't resting well, right? If we're having trouble resting, or if we're in an intense week, we get that like tired and wired energy.
Yes.
Which just feels so not good. And unfortunately, like a lot of people live in that state perpetually.
Yeah.
They're not getting rest. They're not getting recovery. They're in a constant state of like stress. And so just some of these simple tools and techniques like that EFT tapping can be very powerful just to kind of help ground that energy.
Yes. I think a good brain dump before resting is super helpful too. Just getting everything out of your mind before you go to sleep, before you nap, before you take any kind of break. So that's another strategy that I use, and that I didn't use actually before I went to bed, which was probably why I woke up in the middle of the night with a racing mind.
Yep. Yeah, well, I think we can all relate to that. So, that's good. Well, and congratulations. Like also, I think this is part of the conversation as well, as like celebrating and honoring. And it's like, it's a big congratulations that you went through this week, and we'll talk about like how that energy was for you, but also like just hooray. Like it's amazing. Your first launch of the year, like the new year. And you get to serve these new amazing souls that are going to be in your program.
And thank you. Yes, I am. I'm celebrating them. I'm celebrating the fact that, again, this felt like it was the lightest yet most lucrative launch that I've had. And that's what we're all about, right? I would rather it's like the numbers don't matter to me as much as the feeling that I have going through it. And like, what good is you could probably get excited about a lucrative launch, but if you killed yourself in it and you damaged relationships through the process because you were snapping at your family, or you damaged your body because you were just in adrenal burnout the whole time. I mean, there's a lot of, just damage that can happen when you're not in alignment, when you're not doing something in a way that feels light and effortless and flowy. So that to me is the biggest win. And I am always committed to prioritizing that and whatever it takes to do things in a light, fun, easy, joyous way. And it's not always easy, right? Because we can get so stuck in our head and we can make everything so serious, so we can grip so tightly to what we want and all of these things that one can cut us off actually from the thing that we desire and the results that we're trying to get, but also it just makes the journey so much like harder and less enjoyable. So, so that's really what I'm celebrating the most. That's what I'm celebrating the most. And I have to, in my calendar, actually write rest and celebrate after a launch. I block it off in my calendar as like a meeting, like a 3-day retreat with myself, because it is so important to slow down and celebrate so that we can debrief, first of all, kind of figure out what worked, what didn't work, and just reset our nervous system, reset our energy. And and sit in that moment of joy and celebration so that we don't just feel like we're constantly chasing our goals all the time.
Yeah, because that chasing energy and even the okay, what's next energy is exactly what keeps us from the pause.
Yes.
Cause and it also is usually driven by like not good enough, unsatisfied, and those type of things really they burn us out. Like that energy burns you out. And so and I will just like reflect back to you watching you in this launch was so fun. And like it almost felt, at least like as the person watching it, like very casual, very aligned, very like you just seemed comfortable and sure with what you were doing. And that showed up in everything that you did do this week. So it was really cool to witness that and not have your energy be, because again, we're energetic beings, we can pick up on that. So not have your energy feel frantic. Because what do we know? Like we know that the energy that we are working with when we're creating, when we're jumping on Instagram Live and doing all of that, that like affects the people that we're attracting to us.
Amen. Well, I want to thank you too, because one of the things is we've been recording these episodes and, of course, having these conversations for a while now. But because we're constantly talking about the importance of rest, because we're teaching about it in our programs and with our clients and working with our students on the importance of slowing down, reflecting, not being in that chasing, gripping energy, it helps so much because in order to be in integrity with that message, we have to practice what we preach, right? So it's just been so wonderful to have that be so present for me. It's such an ongoing conversation that we're having, and I'm so grateful for it. And that has helped me. Yeah, it's helped me a lot, especially too, as you know, right? I have another program running right now that's called Launch Light, and it's all about launching light, kind of the energetics of launching, having fun while you're launching. And that has been a godsend as well. It's like, teach what you want with support with yourself too, right? Because, and what you want to be in alignment with when you're teaching, because it really helps. I think if you want to launch light, like have a program called Launch Light.
Yeah, because and what's also happening there too is it's like attention or energy flows where your attention goes. And so your attention, your awareness is constantly around that. And so it's starting to become more just normalized in your life. And that's a really, it's helpful, right? Because we all forget, like we all get pulled into, like this week myself, like I just got pulled into the chaos of like, I let that happen. And so when we're like consciously being more aware of like launching light and resting and energy, as it really makes a difference. And I was driving yesterday for like my fifth thing of the day. And I was like, oh my God, I just realized as I was driving that I hadn't given myself any time that day to ground and like breath. I was like living up here in my head in like that high beta brainwave where it's like, but I also was aware that my mind rather, was getting its own little high and importance value from having so many things.
Ooh.
And like going from thing to thing. And I was like, man, I've hardly even had a break today. And I've hardly even had a breath. And now I'm hustling to the next thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you think this is fun, mind. Like you feel that that's important. It makes you feel important rather. Whereas when we pause and reflect, that gives us that like that reality check.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's the thing that's been so helpful for me in the conversation of rest and just to help me embody mindful rest is knowing that taking those pauses will reset my energy, give me more energy. And it just, it's the slowing down to speed up, because before I I have this energy of like wanting to cram in as much as I can, because I think we talked about this before, right? That fear of never having energy again. And so when we can rewire and retrain our mind to know that like, no, rest is where you get energy, then we soften to the invitation to rest, because we see it as something that's for us, not something that is getting in the way of where we want to go, or slowing us down in the pursuit of our goals, or whatever mind is like attached to. So yeah, I love that.
What do you see? So having launched, a couple times, you've launched this program a couple of times. And what do you see, like, if you don't allow yourself to rest, like, what do you see show up as kind of like the consequences really of not embodying the downtime even amidst the chaos?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, okay, so I've had challenging launches and I've had launches that feel really great, right? And I never call them, we don't call them failed launches, because there's no such thing as long as we're learning, right? But I've definitely had those launches that are like, oh, okay, so this one was for the lessons, not the revenue. Okay, I get that. And it always comes back to energy for me. And it's undeniable. I've done enough launch debriefs and examining my own energy and results and making those connections to see that it's all about energy. And it's all about how aligned or unaligned I was, not just with my energy and the importance of embodying that, like the rest that I need, and embodying what I teach, but also alignment in terms of messaging, alignment in terms of belief in what you're offering and putting out there into the world. So in my most challenging launches and least lucrative launches, I would say that my energy, what I was doing in those launches, was not prioritizing my normal practices of self-care, whether that be taking time to slow down in the morning, exercise, right? I would get into this space of, okay, I'm just going to this is launch week. So that means everything else is on hold except for my business. And it becomes like, I've been like, oh, business, thinking under the false idea that was going to get better results in the business. And in fact, this past launch, which was the most successful from a lucrative standpoint, from a financial standpoint, was, okay, well, I meditated every morning. I did not change my routine. I went to bed at 8:00 every night, knowing that rest would restore me. I followed my intuition. I don't like to say this all the time. Like, not everybody's ready for this, but I didn't pre-plan as much messaging in terms of like posts and emails. I didn't pre-schedule as many as I had in the past, which I don't recommend that to everybody. And it just depends where you are in your business. But for me, I wanted to experiment what it would be like to feel into what my audience needed to hear in the present moment. So I've launched this many times already, so I kind of know already what I'm saying, which is why I have the ability and the luxury, I guess, to be able to do that. But that was something that helped me to I would slow down in the morning, this launch, and connect. So I wasn't just having everything automated as I had in the past. I believe that can work still. I'm not saying that it can't, but for me this time, that's what I did. So I was much more intuitive this round. And I was working out. I didn't really change my life that much. And I spent a lot of time with my family. I did a lot of laughing. I did a lot of dancing, which sounds wild, but it made this whole week really, really fun. And the less that I made it all about my business, the more my business thrived. And then in the past, the more I made it all about my business, the more my business suffered. that my mind has a really hard time still understanding that, but my soul, my spirit knows that that is the way for me.
Well, and if your business is a reflection of you, by spending time in your important practices and by like really honoring your energy and honoring the energy of the people who need you, like what do they need to hear? You can't do that because I'm seeing in like the light of this conversation too, is like if we want to use the talk about rest, it's like the rest is where you're tuning in and able to tap into your own intuitive powers, right? And hear your inner voice and like your guidance. And when we're in that kind of hurry, rush energy, that's all brain. And that is like literally brain waves. They're the high beta. So they're short and fast brain waves. And so it's like if you're pre-planning and scheduling this is like that's all mind, and it doesn't give space for other things to bubble up and come through that may be very necessary for you and your audience. And it sounds to me like you did such a great job at making space for the unexpected, right? Making space for what actually needs to be said versus what you think you should say 3 weeks ago.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And it is a beautiful blend of having that space before the launch too. Mm-hmm. So I have spent the past, months really preparing for this also. And I think in past launches, I hadn't done that as much. So we can also create space for ourselves by giving ourselves more time to prepare for do our launch runway, to pre-schedule certain things so that in the launch, we can be very present to what our audience needs to hear and what our launch is calling for, our business is calling for in that moment. So it's not to say that I didn't have anything prepared before. And in fact, the things that I did prepare before only helped me to create more space in this moment.
Yeah.
And also what I did, and I think this is another one of these blend of like practical and spiritual tools, is everything that I did in this launch, I recorded in terms of documenting using Loom, right? Like a Loom recording, screen recording of, okay, here's what I'm doing to update this page the day after my launch, right? Like I have to update this and do that. And just all these little things, thinking ahead to how I can outsource more, how I can bring on more support. So I really didn't do much in this launch without in a really detailed way, documenting that process, thinking like just preparing to hand all of it over to somebody else. So that's another little practical strategy that we can use to give us more space and to open ourselves up to more support. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about outsourcing and working with a virtual assistant, working with a team, is that it gives us more space in the present, not necessarily like more space to even just like you hear about outsourcing, okay, so that you can stay in your genius or whatever, do what is most important, show up for the live content. But it's also just about this space that you're able to create for those intuitive downloads that hit, right? And if you're constantly moving, constantly doing everything for yourself, you just don't have the room for that.
Mm-hmm. And I think that too can be applied to so many different areas of our lives, right? So it's like you're experiencing this in your launch, and the phrase I love the phrase that you use, which is hook up your future self. And that's what you described. It's like, and I think this is such an important conversation when it comes to like creating space in our lives, in our businesses, like in your personal life, whatever, is that it's not that we don't necessarily create space by just saying, F it, I'm ignoring everything. I need space. I need rest. I mean, sometimes it unfolds that way, but usually it comes from like zooming out a little bit and looking and being like, okay, where do and you teach this in your weekly planning process, which is just so helpful. You look at your week and it's like, where can I already see like roadblocks ahead that I can already deal with. Instead of just like us going in blind and then freaking out because we don't have enough space or time or energy in the day, which is bound to happen, we step back first. And it's another way of slowing down to speed up. Like you slow down at the end of the week or on a Saturday or Sunday, take a little time so that the rest of your week goes a little more smoothly, because it's like, oh my God, I have, 3 appointments on this day. So you want to know what I did? So you guys, we should share this. So Kimmy and I were supposed to have this conversation on Monday at the beginning of the week, and now we're having it on Friday. And I was like not feeling it on Monday. I woke up, my husband was going to be gone all day. Like my house was clean. I had my list all ready. I had like prepped for the week. I woke up, I showered, I was like ready. And I kept feeling this resistance to doing this call. And I'm like, WTF. And so I was going to push through, which of course, like Kimmy said, when we're having these conversations, it's like hard. It's like, how can I authentically get on here and have this conversation with Kimmy if I'm like fighting my own intuition and rest? Like rude. So I text her. I was like, Kimmy, I'm so sorry, but like, I feel horrible. And she's like, oh my God, this is an aligned cancellation. Like I could actually.
So great. You feel horrible.
Yeah. Right. It's so great. But she's like, yeah, it's an aligned cancellation. And this is what happens for us sometimes, guys. And don't worry, I will circle back to the original thread. I still know what we're actually talking about. But after she said that to me, I realized I had built up such a story about honoring my energy that I was letting her down. She was going to think I'm flaky, and like, oh, she's going to think, gosh, how could I ever do anything project with Dana if she can't even show up to a podcast episode? Like that's the level that I didn't realize of pressure I was putting on myself, where I was saying it's not okay to honor your energy. Mm-hmm. As soon as I got the message from you, Kimmy, that said, it's an aligned cancellation, I literally cried.
Aww.
Releasing like that buildup that I had created. And it was like all of that happened really unconsciously. But that's something that kind of happens in our lives. It's like we all of a sudden get on the hamster wheel and forget that we can step off and step away. But in terms of hooking up my future self, so then we rescheduled. And I was like, let's do Friday. Or you gave 2 options. I said they're both perfect for me. Well, what I didn't fully factor in was that on Friday today, I am heading out of town after this call. But I was like, I'm going to be so relaxed and ready by the time Friday comes. I'm going to do the call with Kimmy. And then right after that, I have a class that I'm teaching for 1 hour. And then we're going to hit the road. And literally like, the way the week unfolded, it was like, I literally felt like I was just like stumbling and tumbling through the week. And like, I swear I'm like, it's still the same week. Like I can't even believe I got more work done than ever, but I like literally got to today and I was like, why did I schedule myself back to back calls on Friday afternoon when I'm going to be like heading on vacation afterward? And so again, like witnessing sometimes what the brain like plans for, like in the moment sounds exciting, but like if you actually like look at your week or look at your stuff as a whole, you're like, wait a second, is this really like the best alignment of all of my things? Yes. And you've taught me that, Kimmy. Like you've really helped me like look at that bigger picture of like, what does my week look like? And like, how can I make it more flowy for myself?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that right there is the power of weekly planning and doing any type of looking back and debriefing, because that is what happens, right? When we're in a certain energy, and our energy it ebbs and it flows, it changes, especially for women with our cycles. And so what we typically do is we'll commit to things from that energy, yep. Not thinking about what our energy might be like on that day and what else might be going on. And that's why taking that zoomed back look at everything can be so helpful. And I think your audience here, I think you guys will love hearing this, that one of the things that made this launch particularly successful and feel good for me was that it was synced up perfectly with my cycle. And so the last, I track my cycle, and I do teach like cycle syncing as a way to navigate your business, plan your life for women. We talk about that in Peak Performance a lot, because one of the biggest myths that we have, especially again as women, is that we think that we should expect ourselves to be performing and feeling the same way every single day. No. And when we can really own the fact that our energy ebbs, our energy flows, we are going to be like better fit to do certain tasks at different times of our cycle. And we really own that and begin to have awareness about where we are in our cycle, it becomes so powerful. So Kate Northrup talks a lot about this in her whole do less framework and philosophy. But what I did for this one is, so last kind of like the PMS, the sorceress luteal phase, that's where you're very detail oriented and you are kind of like checking everything off right before you head into your menstrual phase. So when I did that, I scheduled everything out. I scheduled out all the posts in my Facebook group. So I did all of these little detailed things before my launch even happened. I was capitalizing on that luteal energy to take care of all of these little details. That was so helpful. And then I went into kind of a resting period right before I went into launch promotion, because I'm in my menstrual phase, right? And I just kind of cocooned a little bit right before. I think you remember I was definitely in a deep cocoon space right before my launch, which I think I described it to you as like storing up my acorns right for my launch. And then I moved into that, like, right after you have your period's done, you feel like super energized. It's like the warrior phase of your cycle. So you have a lot of physical energy at that stage. So it was perfect for me to like, okay, what do I need for my launch? Let's go. And then I was in ovulatory phase, which is really great for being seen, right? You have this kind of almost magnetic energy, if you will. And that was perfect for all of the live videos that I was doing, having to be seen. And now I can feel myself at this stage of my cycle moving back into that luteal phase where, okay, now I'm just kind of taking care of details, wrapping a few things up, reflecting, right? It's that time where you're kind of beginning to get reflective. And now I'll go into this weekend and next week, kind of restoring my energy again as I go into more menstrual, quiet cocoon time. So I would love to say that I planned that. I did not. It just worked out perfectly like that. But I do put it on my calendar, and it made me realize the importance of being even more aware of that and just at least timing things around my period as best that I can. So just a little time and energy hack for the ladies.
Yeah, and there's quite a few books about that. So yeah, Kate Northrup has her book is Do Less.
Mm-hmm.
She has a planner with that and an energy tracker. And then I read a book called Wild Power.
Ooh.
Which is so good. I would say it's a little more on like the spiritual side of and like energy side of that. And then I can't remember at the moment the other book that I read that was way more like the science side of it.
It might be the Elisa Vitti.
Yes.
Book. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we'll link those up in the show notes.
I have another resource that I love so much that really was the most impactful for me personally. And that is this little course that I found on Insight Timer. And Insight Timer has courses that you can take. They're super affordable. They're like a few bucks. And this was from Aluna Moon, Aluna Moon. And it's these two women, and they do a course on the power of your cycle. And it's like what goddess like represents each one of these cycles, and what the kind of benefits are, what her powers are, her superpowers are, and then what maybe the shadow side is of each. And their daily meditations to walk you through your entire cycle. Oh my God, that little course changed my life. I love it so much.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes too. I'll check that out as well. Yeah, we can really, and again, that just, right, I got hit actually unexpectedly. My period arrived right with the new moon, but was like a solid 5 days early. And so that literally threw like a wrench in my whole week, because I was like, it was like my feet got swept up from under me. And so it threw me off. But I just feel like it is such a powerful thing as women to, when it comes to our energy, when it comes to rest, like men operate on a 24-hour cycle. And, most of the world is actually, not surprising, built in expectation and alignment with men in that 24-hour cycle, right? It's like you're expected to wake up, go to work, go to meetings and have the same type of productivity every day, morning to night. But women are built on a 28-day cycle, and so is the moon. And then we have like the year cycle of nature. And it's like we can really look to the cyclical energy as a way to watch ourselves and let ourselves rest, right? It's like we plant the seed, and then the seed germinates, and then the seed sprouts, and then it, is bright, and then like the leaves fall, and then it goes back inward. And it's like we as humans, like the reason Kimi and I are spending so much time talking about rest and having these conversations is because we naturally desire to, our bodies crave that. And they don't crave productivity all the time. They crave the rest. They crave the post-launch. They crave the debrief. They crave all of that. And sometimes it takes more than one day to get through that. Yeah. I read Alicia Keys' book called More Me. Oh my God, it was so good. I actually listened to the audio, and she read it, but she realized like how hard she was pushing herself during tours. And by the way, she's a projector and has and she's very energetically attuned, but she realized, she's like, oh my God, after realizing how much I was burning myself out by going, it's like she loved the work. She loves singing. She loves going on tour, right? She loves producing, right? You love your program. You love serving and showing up for people, but it doesn't mean we can do it forever without pause. And she now she's like, now I need 2 weeks of alone time before and 2 weeks of alone time after every tour, where she just goes away and turns off for 2 weeks.
Oh my God, I love that. You're the second person to mention that book to me. I think it's a sign.
Yes, it is. That book, I mean, she talks about her inner voice. Like, she's got it. She's tapped in, and she's tuned into her energy, and she honors it now, and she uses her voice, right? And she sets the boundaries, and she creates the container, and she has that deep rest, that play, that energy. And then when it's time to show up, she shows up, right? And she's found that balance for herself, it seems like, in a really beautiful way.
I love that. And that's probably a great thing in our next conversation that we can talk about too, where it's the conversation of boundaries and relationships, right? And how important it is for ourselves to know what we need. She's done the work to figure out what she needs in order to thrive. And then the second part of that is not just having that understanding and setting that boundary for yourself, but communicating it to the most important relationships around us, especially if we have men in our lives, right? So that we can understand what we need, if it's different from what they need. And everybody's energy is different, as we've been talking about too. Everybody's need for rest and restoration is we're all on different cycles. We're all different types of human beings. And so, yeah, it's really important to get clear about what we need in whatever season we happen to be in at the moment. And then how can we set that boundary for ourselves and communicate that boundary with those around us?
Kimi, you are the queen of the teaser.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. Well, so that is what we will talk about in next week. So guys, stay tuned because that one we've been wanting to talk about this and wanting it to flow. So I'm really so excited to have that conversation. And in the meantime, so just share with us, Kimi, it's 3, 12, 11, 10. Oh, it's early. It's 9:45 in the morning there.
Yes, it is.
I'm like, my day's over. What?
Mine is just getting started. Yeah.
So tell us if you'll share to close out, like, what is your rest plan to honor and celebrate and sit in the post-launch energy?
Yes. Thank you for asking because it's going to help me to declare it for myself as well. Right after this, every Wednesday and Friday, me and my boyfriend, we have this crazy intense workout that we do together. It's like a 2-hour workout. He is a professional MMA fighter. And somehow I fell into doing his workout with him twice a week, but I love it. And I know that doesn't sound like rest necessarily for some people, but what it is for me is quality time. And so we love spending this quality time with each other. And I actually, my body loves a really good hard workout as a way to, I'm almost like sweating out energy. Yes. Maybe it's the manifesting generator thing in me. But that actually helps me to process things. And then it helps me to clear my mind because the nature of the workout, I have to be very, very present in order to like stay balanced and injury free. And so it's like a 2-hour meditation for me is what I feel like. And then after that, we're going to head to Whole Foods and get their Friday special $5 huge pizza. And we'll pick up the kids from school and just relax and unplug. For me, the rest really comes in the form of not getting on video calls with people, just kind of following whatever feels fun and light for me. I will also be doing some taking care of like cleaning the house and almost like putting things back in order because one area that I definitely have not been as mindful about is my house during the launch. Yeah. I just said this morning, I was like, next launch, I'm going to have a house cleaning team come in and like clean my house before and after the launch. Wouldn't that be so awesome? So that's my future vision.
I'm going to hold that vision with you because wouldn't it be awesome? And it will be like, you can bring that right into your reality.
Yes. Yes. So I feel so good when I have a clear space. I feel like I have a clear mind, although I don't like to like say that I need it desperately, but it definitely helps. I don't want to cling to that too much because sometimes we can't control our surroundings, right?
I do find that I do rest a little bit better when things are sorted in my house. And also after an intense period, it is a restful way. To me, it is restorative to like bring the order back.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Like I feel you on that.
I love to, I don't know if we mentioned this before, but I know I've told you, but I love to have a nice drink, a nice bubbly rosé and clean. Yeah. So if I wasn't doing a dry January, there would actually be wine involved in this whole restful weekend. But my boyfriend and I have committed to a dry January like many people have. So
I'll it.
Just, save the bubbly for next month.
Yeah, you can have bubbly soda water.
Yes, that's right. I'll make one of your mocktails.
Yes, I love making mocktails. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, this is going to be so fun. I'm so happy to hear that from you. And I'm gonna go. Well, I have one more thing to do, and then I'm out. I'm gone for 4 days. I'm going on a trip, so that's my rest.
Love it. That's so great.
But I did frantically clean the house yesterday afternoon. I was like. Suddenly decided I needed to like scrub the shower floor. So just like made some space in my house so that we can leave feeling good and like really restore for the weekend. So I'll be off Instagram at least for the next 2 days, which is always restful. That. Yep. Mm-hmm. And then we'll talk again next week and get to record the next episode. So this has been such a delight. Thank you for sharing. It was really nice to hear your recap and like how this launch and your energy and everything that you've been working on has kind of flowed into your most lucrative and lightest launch yet. That is just the most beautiful thing to hear. So I commend you for all that's gone into creating that for yourself.
Well, thank you for all the love and support, the endless love and support. I am in deep gratitude. I will say that's the other thing that I do after a launch is I like to reach out to all those that helped me through the whole experience. So that's the other thing that I'll be doing this weekend is just kind of connecting with people and saying my deep heartfelt thank yous for, because it takes a village, that's how we do it. We together we rise, as we say.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you, Kimi, as always, for sharing with us. And then to the listeners, thank you as always for tuning in. And one I forgot to share, if you want to see some of Kimi's workouts, follow her on Instagram at Kimi M, because I'm like, oh my God, it's very inspiring and just so fun to see like all the stuff. She always shares little clips of like what they do. So you can follow that if you want an insight into what an MMA fighter does.
It's wild. It's wild. I'm like, why am I
here? Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kimi. And we will catch you all next week on another episode of the Tuning In podcast. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tuning In podcast. As always, if this would resonate with anyone you know, please share the episode. You can follow along with my journey on Instagram at Dana_Evans, or find me on my website at alignful.com.